The Dravani warlord's bridge was cold, but the intelligence briefing brought a deeper chill.
The humans are waking a 140-year-old relic. They must be more desperate than we thought.
The report from our spies ended with a single line. The ship is still there.
A ghost ship and a fossil. This skirmish will be over before they fire a single shot.
His laughter boomed through the flagship bridge, but his claws gouged the armrest, leaving deep scratches.
Set course for that dead system at once. I want to see their ancient hero tremble when he sees our fleet.
Across the fleet, drives ignited, arrogance blazing brighter than engine flares.
I've studied the old wars. The humans have no tricks left. Their time is over.
But deep in the flagship's databanks, an old entry from 90 years ago flickered. TSV steady, still waiting. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth hadn't buried all its dead. On Earth, beneath a bunker, older than most civilizations, the cryovault had not been opened in decades. Commander Rose walked the frozen corridor alone, her breath fogging in the air of the deepest level. The pod's status panel flickered. ADM, F, Donovan, stasis cycle 217. Green.
Wake him. Authorization, Lena Rose, Earth Fleet Command, priority override.
The pod hissed open. Cold mist spilled into the vault, and a voice like gravel dragged over ice cut through the silence.
You better have a damn good reason for disturbing me.
The Dravani have returned. They're using fleet formations from 90 years ago. We need the man who wrote the counter-strategy.
That playbook should have been declassified. Use a computer.
The Dravani adapted to our algorithms, but not to human instinct. And there's another reason. Your ship, Admiral, TSV Steady, it's still waiting in that system.
Let it wait. I've done my time.
I wouldn't be here if there was another way. The Dravani fleet is massing using tactics only you've beaten.
Fine. Show me what's left of my old war. But don't expect enthusiasm.
They crossed to the briefing room, where a holosphere hummed to life.
This is live feed from our deep space probes. Dravani warships in formation Kappa 7, 37 ships, all older models. They're betting we've forgotten how to fight them.
Kappa 7. I wrote the response maneuver in '62. They haven't updated their playbook in 90 years.
And here is where you parked her. The system's been listed as uncharted for decades.
I left you there. I left them all behind.
The memory hit like a cold wave, but he forced it down.
I'll go. But don't expect me to come back. Not all of me, anyway.
Donovan walked into the launch bay alone. No honor guard, no fanfare, just an old shuttle and a longer shadow.
One last flight. One last war. Then I can sleep without dreaming.
The shuttle lifted without a sound and slipped into the black. He keyed in the coordinates himself, a system that no modern chart showed. Mid-journey, the flight recorder crackled. An old log, corrupted but still playing. Log entry, the 4th of December, 2089. Fleet Command knows they can't extract us. We hold the line. Godspeed, Admiral.
You held, and I never came back.
He silenced the recorder. His hands trembled on the controls, then steadied with old practice. When the drive disengaged, there it was. A rogue planet, airless and cold, and in its low orbit, a silhouette that shouldn't exist.
Still there. Still waiting. Just like I left you. Heading in. One last time.
The shuttle descended through vacuum, and TSV Steady filled the viewport, a dark cathedral of war, asleep but not dead.
You look worse than I remember, but then, so do I.
The docking collar clanged home. Old seals groaned, but held. The inner hatch opened onto a darkness so deep it felt solid. His shoulder light carved a narrow path through floating dust.
Still holding atmosphere. Not much else.
Corridors curved away into nothing. Every surface was furred with frost. His footsteps echoed, the only sound.
3% reactor. Only life support on the bridge section. Someone planned for this.
He passed crew quarters sealed since the last war, a child's drawing still pinned to a locker door.
None of them knew they weren't coming home.
The main bridge blast door sealed the way ahead, a single amber light pulsing faintly through the gap. The blast door ground open with a shriek of frozen metal, revealing the bridge, a tomb of frost-rimed consoles and silent duty stations. At the nav station, a skeleton sat upright, its uniform tatters still holding the shape of a man who had never left.
They stayed at their posts, all of them. And I was the one who gave the order to hold.
On the command console, an unread personal log icon pulsed with a date from 90 years ago. Admiral, if you hear this, we held, but you never came back. I hope you can live with that. The voice was steady, unbroken. That quiet, patient disappointment cut deeper than any accusation.
I've lived with it every day they let me sleep. Now they expect me to finish what I started.
He turned from the console and faced the central chair, its cracked leather still molded to his shape.
All right, old girl. You've waited long enough. Let's see if you remember how to burn.
His hands found the ignition sequence by memory. The screen lit. R-reactor ignition. Confirm. Without hesitation, he pressed the blinking key. The view screen blinked. Then the deep thrum of the reactor core fired and immediately coughed out.
Come on, old girl. Not now. You've slept long enough to shake off the rust.
The main view screen stayed dark, except for a red cascade. Navigation fail, shield capacitors drained, weapons safeties locked.
I know the manual overrides. I wrote half of them back when they were designing this bucket.
His fingers flew across the old console, inputting backdoor codes that hadn't been used since the ship's maiden voyage. Outside, the engine, nacelles belched orange fire, then blue. The hull shuddered, shedding decades of dust. The central holosphere spun to life. A stylized waveform coalesced into words. Welcome back, Admiral Donovan. TSV Steady AI Core Ver. 3.2 standing by.
She remembers me. After 90 years, she still knows my voice. That's more than I expected.
He plotted the intercept vector himself, fingers tracing routes he'd memorized 90 years ago. The course locked onto the Dravani fleet. TSV Steady turned her prow toward the fight she'd been built for. The Dravani fleet detected the ship long before it was visible, a single thermal bloom against the void.
One human vessel. They truly have lost their minds, a relic against 37 warships.
But the tactical officer's crest flattened as the computer finished its identification sweep. The readout scrolled, hull pattern, Terran Standard Battleship, Mark IV, last logged engagement, Battle of the Gap, 2089, call sign, Steady.
Steady? That is the ship that crippled my grandfather's armada. A ghost story for hatchlings.
But the energy signature beneath the rust matched no ghost story. Cold, deliberate, and closing.
Then we will make it a ghost again. Surround them. I want to watch them squirm before the end.
The Dravani ships shifted like a tightening fist, forming a sphere of guns around the ancient intruder. Tavor triggered the hailing frequency, his voice filling the bridge with rehearsed contempt.
Unknown vessel. This is Warlord Tavor. State your name and prepare to be remembered only as a footnote in Dravani victory songs.
This is Admiral Frank Donovan of the Terran ship Steady. Withdraw your fleet or be destroyed.
Donovan, the Butcher of the Gap, a fossil commanding a tomb. You should have stayed buried.
But on the Dravani flagship, more than one officer's crest flattened. They knew the name Donovan. It was a curse in their clan sagas.
Last warning. Surrender now, and I will let your fleet flee. Make me fire, and none leave this system.
All batteries. Fire. I want that relic vaporized. Show them the price of defying the Dravani.
The Dravani formation erupted. Plasma bolts, thick as warships, streaked towards Steady in a blazing net. Donovan's hands moved before the order left his mouth. Steady's thrusters flared in a sequence he'd trained 1,000 times.
All batteries, open fire. Pattern Sigma 6. Let them taste 90-year-old steel.
The old battleship's forward cannons belched blue-white energy, the bolts lancing into the Dravani formation. The first salvo glanced off a cruiser's shields, but the impact sent a shudder through the Dravani line that the bridge crews would remember.
Helm, pull them in. Tighten the turn like we're running. Let them think we're braking.
Steady's bow dropped, trailing plasma fire. Every Dravani gun chased the feint, widening their formation like a net spreading too thin.
Torpedoes, full spread. Speed, drift. Pattern, green 3. Let them think it's debris.
Look at that. They're launching garbage. Slow enough to swat aside. Point defenses, clear the field.
But the torpedoes didn't accelerate. They drifted, cold and dark, riding a trajectory the Dravani computers dismissed as sensor ghosts. 90 years ago, the Dravani updated their targeting algorithms to ignore any object moving below a fraction of combat speed, exactly the speed those torpedoes now held.
Wait, my grandfather's words. The slow death in the gap, the butcher's signature. No, it can't be.
The torpedoes reached their kill box, one after another. The unremarkable blips detonated inside point defense minimum range, their warheads punching through shields like paper.
5 down. They never update their identification protocols. Arrogance survives longer than hulls.
It is him, the same admiral, the same ship, the same cursed pattern. All ships break formation. But it was already too late.
The comm crackled, and Tavor's voice came through the static, laced with venom and desperation.
You think you've won, old man? Look at your ship. It's a coffin, just like the ones you abandoned at the gap.
On Steady's bridge, Donovan's knuckles went white on the armrest, but his voice was steady.
My crew held the line so that yours could run. They've been waiting 90 years for you to join them.
The words were quiet, cutting across the Dravani bridge like a blade of absolute certainty.
The ancient human is not afraid. He's been waiting 90 years for this. We only woke him.
Torpedo control. Target the flagship. Full power spread. Pattern Delta. Let's give them a lesson they should have learned in school.
The torpedoes launched in a tight cluster, accelerating now on a direct collision vector. No feint, no drift, pure annihilation. The Dravani flagship's point defense lashed out, but the warhead shields flared with a modulation they'd stopped using 70 years ago. Explosions rippled across the flagship's shields, and the mighty vessel shuddered, its defensive grid failing. Tavor slammed the jump button, but instead of the familiar lurch into FTL, a web of blue energy seized the flagship.
No, they're jamming our FTL. Impossible. That frequency was retired decades ago.
Donovan had anticipated the escape. His hands were already on the FTL jammer console, fingers tracing a sequence only he remembered.
You'll find I kept a few tricks from the old days. Jamming protocols your engineers forgot to delete.
The remaining Dravani ships saw their flagship crippled and FTL disabled. One by one, they broke formation and fled.
My fleet abandons me, just as my grandfathers did. History repeats because we never learned.
Steady's engines flared bright blue as Donovan pushed the ship onto a pursuit vector, closing the distance to the stricken flagship.
No one escapes. They all answer for 90 years of waiting.
The flagship's emergency thrusters sputtered, but Steady was already in optimum firing range, its guns locking on. Tavor saw the targeting lock flash on his console, and for the first time in his reign, the old warlord felt the cold grip of inevitability. Donovan pressed the firing key without ceremony. Steady's main batteries answered in a single coordinated blast.
No, this cannot be the end of the Tavor line. Not to a fossil, not to a ghost.
The flagship's core went critical. Fire swallowed the bridge, vaporizing the warlord mid-scream. Abruptly, the void went silent. Debris tumbled where the Dravani fleet had been. Steady's chronometer read 12 minutes, 7 seconds.
12 minutes. That's all it took to finish a war that's lasted my whole life.
He saw no victory in the wreckage, only the faces of his dead crew, finally given their rest. His hand trembled as he reached for the autopilot, setting a course back to the uncharted system.
Steady. Log the engagement. Dravani warlord eliminated. Threat neutralized. All ships accounted for in the wreckage. And still, the ghosts say nothing. They never do.
He initiated the return sequence. Old engines hummed, and the ancient ship turned its prow back toward the dark. Before he could rest, he owed one last duty, a tight beam transmission toward Earth. Mission accomplished. Tavor dead, fleet scattered. Returning to standby.
Steady. Prepare my cryopod. Cycle 218. Reactor to standby. Full shutdown after I am sealed.
The ship acknowledged with a quiet chime. Donovan forced himself from the command chair, every joint protesting. He walked the frozen corridor to the cryo bay, his shadow stretching long under the emergency lights.
My body's done. The old reactor'll outlast me. But I knew that when I opened the pod.
The cryo bay was dark and silent, the pod already hissing open as he approached.
One more sleep. Maybe they'll let me rest until the galaxy forgets my name.
He stood before the open pod, its cold mist washing over him, a second coffin waiting.
Once, he had climbed into this machine to escape. Now, he only wanted to return something he'd lost.
He placed one trembling hand on the pod's rim and did not step inside. Not yet. He cast one last look toward the bridge, a silent farewell to the dead, then turned to the pod.
If this machine holds, I'll wake again. If not, the crew's been waiting long enough.
He climbed in, every joint resisting, and laid back against the cold padding. The pod lid descended, locking with a final pneumatic hiss through the frosting glass. His weathered face smoothed, the weight of command finally lifting. Frost bloomed instantly, swathing the pod in a crystalline silence. Outside, the ship's external lights flickered out, one by one, like candles in a draft. The engine nacelles went dark. The great cyan sensor at the prow dimmed until only a faint pulse remained, like a heartbeat slowing. The old battleship became a shadow against the stars, a tomb for the living and the dead.
Finally, the silence he'd chased for 90 years. No dreams, no ghosts, just the dark.
In the heart of Earth Fleet Command, Commander Rose stood before a secure terminal, the words from the void blinking on her screen. Mission accomplished. Tavor dead. Fleet scattered. Returning to standby. Donovan TSV steady.
He did it. The old man pulled a ghost out of the dark and ended a war in 12 minutes.
She didn't celebrate. She downloaded the encrypted attachment and walked toward the briefing room, where the real power waited. The room was dark, lit only by a central holosphere. Around it sat figures she wasn't allowed to name.
Admiral Donovan's after-action report. But more importantly, he sent this, a registry.
She entered a code, and the galaxy map lit with 200 amber markers, each marker a system, each system a ship, each ship a cryopod just like Donovan's.
Project Silent Sentinel. 200 ships, 200 veterans, all parked in systems marked uncharted until the day they're needed.
The shadowed figures said nothing, but the silence was heavier than words. Earth's oldest secret was now active. Commander Rose stepped forward, the amber light of the galaxy map, casting her shadow long.
If one veteran can end a war in 12 minutes, imagine what 200 could do. We should wake them all.
A voice from the head of the table, ancient and unyielding, silenced the room. They are waiting for a reason, Commander, not for your peace of mind.
You are wrong. We just proved the concept. Letting them sleep another century is a waste.
The same voice, colder now. You are dismissed. The sentinels remained dormant. The words struck like a closing blast door. Rose stood motionless, the galaxy map still spinning amber warnings.
Silent Sentinel. They call it a project, but it's a tomb. Donovan knew.
She gave a terse nod, turned on her heel, and walked out without another word. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. The briefing room door sealed behind her, but the weight of the order stayed on her shoulders. Across the galactic net, a single entry updated. System NV Connected 7000, 721X, status uncharted. No further data available. In that uncharted system, the rogue planet turned slowly, airless and cold, its only companion a silhouette that blended into the dark. TSV, steady, rested where she had been left, hull scarred and frozen, the faded squadron marks telling no stories. No lights burned in the viewports. The great cyan sensor at the prow was dark, no longer a watching eye. Inside, the bridge was silent, the message waiting on a console no one would see. Stand by. The galaxy, oblivious, charted new trade routes and forgot the war that had nearly ended them. And the old ship waited, as she had for 90 years, her crew at rest, her captain dreaming without dreams. The title promise was kept. Earth's oldest veteran had returned to duty, and the galaxy hadn't buried him. The galaxy reclassified the system as uncharted again, but the truth lingered in the dark, and deep in that truth, a chill. Earth had 200 more just like her, all parked, all waiting. In 100 uncharted systems, the same scene repeated, a monolithic bunker, half buried on an airless world. Inside, rows of frosted pods stretched into the darkness, each one holding a veteran who had seen their war end, not in peace but in cold slumber. Status monitors glowed amber. Veteran active. Sleep, cycle 217, repeated in silent chorus. 200 warships, identical in design, waiting in silent orbit above each tomb. On the galactic map, the markers glowed like embers, each one a promise of annihilation. No one alive remembered their names. Their battles were footnotes in histories no one wrote, but they were waiting. All 200, like Donovan, had been tucked away by a government that never truly trusted peace. They were the last resort, the silent sentinels, and they had no retirement date. The galaxy thought Earth had disarmed after the last war. They thought wrong. 200 ships, 200 crews, all parked, all waiting. Deep in the silent bridge of TSV steady, a single console flickered. The amber light pulsed, and a line of text scrolled across the screen, unseen by any living eye. Incoming transmission from Earth Command. Priority coded. Decryption. Stand by, Admiral, stand by. The command chair remained empty, its occupant locked in frost just a few decks away. In the cryo bay, the pod displayed no change. Donovan's stasis held, unbroken. The transmission repeated twice. Then the console went dark again, as if even the signal knew it spoke to ghosts. Outside, the ship drifted, a dead hulk with a live heart beating in amber. The message remained logged in the ship's core. Stand by. A promise to be woken when the galaxy forgot its fear. But Donovan slept on, as did 200 others. The galaxy's last, best hope, entombed in uncharted space. The ship and its captain waited, as they always had, for a war that might never come, or might arrive tomorrow. The credits rolled over the starfield, a slow scroll of names receding into the void. The rogue planet turned beneath its silent guardian, the ship a shadow carved from the dark. A low hum resonated, the standby pulse of a reactor that had seen war and was waiting for another. Then the title card appeared, stark white letters filling the screen. The title held for a moment, then faded, leaving the starfield once more. The screen faded to black, and the hum grew softer, not gone, but diminished. The silence was not empty. It was the waiting. 200 ships, 200 crews, all parked, all waiting, and somewhere, in the uncharted dark, A cyan eye slept. The story was over. The waiting continued. In the deep night cycle of Earth Fleet Command, the holosphere still spun, unattended. At the edge of the map, a new contact materialized, an energy signature that matched no known species. The computer flagged it as anomalous. Then another appeared, and another. Then one of the amber markers blinked twice. Silent Sentinel, in a system light years away, had registered the threat. The marker's label updated: Sentinel Station, Stanby, pending activation. In the uncharted system, the old battleship received a silent handshake ping. Deep within the frozen hull, a single circuit closed. The sensor array flickered. The cyan eye opened a fraction, casting a thin beam across the void before dying again. In the dark briefing room, the map displayed the spreading red threat, and the single amber marker pulsed patiently. The galaxy's oldest veterans had just been reminded they were not retired. They were on deck. And then the screen went black.